How's it going, everybody out there in the Cinema Slice world? This is Brandon, sitting down with Charlene Jeter, the very talented filmmaker from Detroit, Michigan. This is actually our third interview on here, but it was the first one we actually ever recorded. And unfortunately, this part of the interview wasn't properly captured. When we jump back, we're going to be talking to Charlene about how she got her start as a filmmaker. Enjoy.
I did it, and I just felt like I had to do another. So I just continued on, and I rent equipment out, and I do another film, and develop more and more and more. And then I just started developing skills as far as asking people to participate, developing editing skills, and I just somehow evolved into a filmmaker.
So you did not go to film school at all for your training at all?
No, I trained myself.
Oh, that's fantastic. The one thing that I've noticed, I just had the pleasure of watching Sleepyhead, which is on Vimeo. I think your channel is Charlene Jeter. You can check it out there, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I just had the pleasure of watching Sleepyhead, which you played Emily, which was a great role. You did fantastic. It was a story of a toxic relationship between Emily and a character named Marvin. Can you tell me anything about the process that went into writing that story?
Well, writing Sleepyhead is funny because it started out as a 4-minute short. And I originally wrote it with the idea that it was going to be a comedy. And then we went to Royal Oak, and I shot the first scenes with Sean Lee. And then I shot my scenes, which I think we did an excerpt of. That was just the first scene, really. And I realized there was nothing funny about this film. So from that little bit there, I just sort of expanded on it, and I wanted to sort of dig into what a woman really goes through when she feels like someone's cheating, and also what a guy may go through when his woman thinks he's cheating when he's not. And right. So that's kind of where that kind of evolved, and it just kind of grew. And as from a technical aspect, it was also a film that I wanted to see. A lot of times I give my camera to other people. I wanted to hold the camera in my hand and see what I can capture and see if what I'm communicating to other people is making sense. Because I can see it in my head, and sometimes I try to communicate it and I never get what I see in my head. And even though I did it myself, I didn't really get what I saw in my head, but I still got something pretty fantastic. Just from the capture. It was a slow process. It took us a few months to do it, and I wanted to do it slow. I really just took it as an experiment as to this whole filmmaking thing. I just wanted to experiment in different aspects so that when I have a bigger crew, I would be able to talk the language to them, and I'd be able to kind of know what limitations are and all that stuff.
Absolutely. The color and the sound on that short was phenomenal, by the way. It looked beautiful. It sounded great. Did you have a big crew when you shot Sleepyhead, or was it a smaller crew?
It was really just me. When we were in Royal Oak, my husband helped with the boom, the sound, and I ran camera, and my son did one day, but the majority of it was shot by me. And it's funny because when people show up on set, they're like, "Where's your crew?" And I'm like, "Well, this is just going to be a different kind of short." It wasn't that I didn't want to collaborate with anyone else because I love collaborating with other people. It's just that for that one, I just wanted to just kind of dip my toe in every little aspect of it to see how much of it I can get what I want. So I explored with different things. Like for the sound, for instance, I'd have 3 microphones planted, or multiple microphones. I had a microphone planted in different areas for each actor, so that so if the microphone's over here and the actor's way over there talking they're talking to 2 different areas, at least I capture one on this one on that one, and it was equal. So when as an editor, I was able to grab it. I was just able to go between the 2, and it sound consistent. And then I also would have a master microphone just to make sure I got equilibrium, somewhere in the middle. So that was interesting to do because I'd use those I have this large lighting boom pole or a light stand. It's really heavy, and I tape my microphones on it, and I'd stick it maybe however high in the air, just above the actors, so that even if they moved around, there was a microphone.
Perfect. Yeah, the most important thing for me when I watch any type of film is the color and sounds. If it looks good and it sounds great, if either of those 2 things are off, it can really hinder any type of script. I don't care if you have the best script ever. If the sound's off or it doesn't look great, people aren't going to, get the message. So when I was watching it, I was very impressed. It was probably one of the best put together shorts I've seen in a while, especially from being shot in Detroit, Michigan.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, one thing I also did the set design, and I wanted to experiment with low lights and one source lighting. So a lot of the lights will be in one direction. You have a lot of natural shadows on the face, and then my skin is darker. And a lot of times when I be on other people's sets, they tend to want to flood me with light, which remove all the shadow and expression from my face. And I wanted to see if I didn't flood myself with light and it didn't flood anyone else with light, what difference would that make? How could that be different? So it was exploration in a lot of different areas, from light to even with the color, with editing. I wanted to try different ways of sort of bringing out naturally what we already shot, see if I can add shadows. And I just was really taking it from a very artistic point of view to see if I could even add more to the performances that we had just with all these other things that were external from what the actors provided.
And absolutely, and that actually comes through clear in the bar scene when you're approached by another gentleman who begins to hit on you as you're sitting there drinking, and the Marvin character is talking to another woman in the back of the bar. The lighting contrast and the blues and the reds of the bar, I thought it was gorgeous. I really thought that the lighting was fantastic in that scene. That's why I was curious. It's so much more impressive now to know that it was such a small crew, because watching it, I would have figured that was a big budget short. It just looked fantastic in that scene. So do you have any advice for budding filmmakers for lighting and stuff like that? Like if they want to explain that?
Well, it's interesting that you picked that scene, because that scene was really, there was a lot of natural lights coming through the window, and the lights and how it and the colors and everything, I actually did that in post. It was really just standard light. It was just the lights coming in from the window that I was trying to block out, but I really couldn't. And I think I might have had one directional light in the room, but I used some special effects to make the lights flash, and I altered the colors to make it just seem like a lot. The girl on the stage was just me on the wig, because it was only three of us in the room. So because we have autofocus on our camera, so I asked Dennis Marin, who played the guy hitting on me in the bar. At one point, it does a rack focus. So I told him, I says, okay, the square is here, and we're both going to be in a square. So you tilt your head in the square when you're talking, or you're talking about that guy over there. And then when he moves away, the square hits Sean and I on the stage. It was just perfect. So it was okay, because I wanted to see if I could do this, film it myself, do this one technique that you really need someone else to do, but to work with the camera and see if I can use the technology to do it for me. And it just came out so perfect. And I was just so pleased with the results of that, because that was a total experiment. The whole scene was an experiment, just to give a feel for it, because it was three of us in the room. The bartender was Sean, because we did it was a lot of split screens there. So Sean was the bartender, as he was also the guy on the stage, Marvin. And I was, of course, sitting at the table or at the bar with Dennis. And I was also on the stage in a wig. So, it worked out.
I did not notice, from watching the film, you would not notice that. So that was a great job of musical chairs for characters. And that's was there a lot of post-color correction done?
Like I said, I had a look that I wanted for the film. And but I really focused on the lights themselves. How was I going to light it? Because I was using just regular Canon DSLRs, and with it being dark lights, I know that you can capture a lot of noise. So I need to make sure that whatever we captured was really, really, really high quality, given that we didn't have 4K cameras, we had 1080 cameras. And so I weighed heavily on my lenses and what I knew about the lenses, and really just making sure I had everything just as sharp as possible. And I also did something that I hadn't really done a lot. of if something didn't work out right, I do a reshoot. And I was grateful for a very patient cast because because I take it, I see it when we're doing it, and then I just go back, because I was editing the whole time we were doing it, but noticed something wasn't right. I asked, look, we need to do this again, and they came back and they would do it again, and by then I would know what I needed to improve on. So that actually helped out a lot too. So, but overall, with all those little things, even the set design was part of it. So I was trying to take it from, because I have a fine arts degree in drawing, and I had a lot of classes in design and competition and things like that. So everything in the background matters. So, right. Designing the set and putting everything together in my studio was very important. And a lot of the sets was simply fabric on the walls. But I wanted to make sure that the colors of the fabric was complementary to the color of the person that was in front of it, so that, we can really see them. And then also for the moods, because the colors sort of controlled the mood, so if it was a colder scene, it felt colder. If it was a warm, intimate scene, it felt a little bit more. The backgrounds were important for that.
Fantastic. Let's talk about Zoe and Jess for a second.
Okay.
That was a 48-hour film competition, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Can you give any insight to people who might not know what that is? What was it like working on something like that?
Okay, so Zoe and Jess, I filmed in Toronto, and I had actually did something different. Instead of reserving a hotel room, I reserved someone's cabin, or it's like a little cabin in the city, so to speak. The place was really, really tiny, but it was beautiful. So, I had my friend Janice Israeloff. She was out there, and she was in the film with me. And I remember when I drove to go to the kickoff for the 48, I drove past this park that had this skyline of Toronto. I was like, oh my God, I've got to come back to this park. And then eventually, coming back and everything, I couldn't find a park. And then I kind of bumped into it again. And then I got up at really early, more like 5 o'clock in the morning, because I wanted to catch the sunrise, over Toronto. But somehow my battery died, and it was really close to sunrise. And it's like, oh my God, I got to go back to my place, get the new battery and everything. But by then, the sun started rising. It was too late. But what I found out was the sun doesn't rise on that side of Toronto. It was rising on the other side of Toronto. So I was actually saved. So I had to wait till nighttime when the sun set. So that was a lot of fun. And it was surprising because everybody in that park had their cameras waiting, because they all knew about the sun setting behind the skyline at that specific hour. And I think at that time I had my one actor, Daniel Chung, he was there at the cabin. We were doing his late scenes or whatever. I actually had to kick him out. I said, look, sun's setting. If we got it, I can only got this day, because it's got to turn it in tomorrow. So got to go. But he was great. I also had a voice here in the U.S., Anthony Douglas, who sort of spoke for him, because Daniel's a very busy actor out there. So instead of having him pressured to remember lines and all that, I said, well, listen, I'll get someone else to talk for you. We'll just use you moving around and stuff. But Zoe and Jess itself was, I wanted to sort of get used to the idea of trying to write a romance. And because typically I'm always accused of doing horrible things to the men in my films. Unfortunately, towards the end, it got less romantic.
Yes.
But it was a buddy film. And she should have listened to her buddy. But again, it was about the backgrounds, about everybody looking really good and complimenting the set. Now, I didn't have control of the set like I did with Sleepyhead, because I created every set in Sleepyhead. And Zoe and Jess, the set was there. But because the cabin itself was so beautiful, I just kind of went around and tried to see what we looked like, made sure we had the right color combination as far as wardrobe, and just went with that. And then also did some deep, rich color grading as well, in order to make sure it came out the way it did.
Fantastic. What was the first thing that you ever worked on?
The very first film I worked on was called He's So Cute. And that was just a monologue I found online. And at first, I just was in it. And then I said, wait a minute, this is boring, just me. Then I had my daughter stand next to me, and then I'm talking to her. And I said, that's kind of boring because it's one shot. And then I had my husband walk past as if I'm looking at him, and he's so cute. But then the very first thing I wrote and filmed was called Who Ate My Cake? And
Okay.
it was just a silly little short. I didn't know anything, but I was just kind of basing it on a memory I had of my son who had sat in the cake. He was like 2, and he basically sat in the cake and had cake all over his body, his diaper and everything. And he swore he didn't eat the cake. And it was just so funny because I came in the kitchen, it was cake everywhere, it was cake footprints everywhere, and he just, it wasn't me. And I've just always loved that memory. And, you know, we didn't really have cell phones back then to capture with the camera and everything. So I just always had that picture in my mind. So I wanted to kind of recreate that experience where it's me, where I've got cake in my face, basically. But I'm swearing it's the kid. I'm blaming it on the kid.
Yes. What is, for you as a filmmaker, what's the hardest part about starting a project? Is it the scheduling? Is it the writing of the actual script? The casting? What part is the hardest hump to get over to actually start working on something?
Well, the hardest part is between post-production and pre-production, because when I'm in post, I'm editing the story, right? I'm putting it together, it's coming together and everything, but then I miss like the production portion of it, which is the very smallest part, was when you get everybody together to do it. So I immediately, in that period between that and starting something new, I just kind of go into a slump, and then I just like, oh my God, I've got to do something. So usually what I end up doing is I have post and pre-production almost overlapping, because I even have that right now, because I'm in post-production for my feature film, Love Espionage, and I'm in pre-production for a new film that I'm about to start, which is Iced Out. Okay. I almost, you know, that's really the hard part for me, is just that period between the two. Just it's a little period, but it's just because I just feel like I'm not doing anything.
Okay. Did Love Espionage started as a short? Did it start as a short?
Well, there is one short, Love Espionage, online. That one we did in 24 hours. Okay. What happened after I did that, because I did that and Zoe and Jess around the same time, because I went to Toronto to go watch the premiere of Zoe and Jess. And I really loved what we had done, because we had a 2-person team for that one. And I really loved what we had done, that I wanted to make a longer story. So I just wanted to see what happened to Penny Winters and Raymond Carr. So originally I was going to make 4 mini shorts, but then as we started to film and it's got more detailed, and, you know, I've taken everything that I've known and I wanted to make it a much richer story and everything. Part 1 was about 30 minutes. I think it actually came out to about 37 minutes. And I'm like, wow, no one's going to watch part 1. They're not even going to go to part 2 with part 1 being this long. But part 1 needed to be that long in order to establish where the story was going. And then part 2, when I got to it, it's got the meat of the action and everything. That was about another 30 minutes. So I said, okay, you know, maybe this just needs to be a longer movie. And I started with the idea of gluing them together. And I did some rewriting along the way, too. It's a more concise story as one unified story versus pieced up. So, I mean, subconsciously, I think it was me sort of tricking myself to write a feature and make a feature. But that first experience was such a good, positive experience that I just really wanted to do more. So, but the first Love Espionage, which is on Vimeo right now, was done in 24 hours.
Oh, wow. It's another impressive feat. How does the casting process work for you? How do you cast? How's your casting process?
Well, I do a number of things. I have a lot of active friends on Facebook. So a lot of times I forget people and stuff and all that. So I really just go through my news feed and see who's out there and see who's doing what and everything. And that helps sometimes. Other times, while I'm writing, I have a person in mind, or I see a person. I've talked to a person recently. I said, I wonder what this person would be like in this character, and how this character would do this, this, and this. And sometimes that takes over, and then I'm like, on pins and needles, please, if I ask you, please just be in my film, please be in my film, because I wrote the part for them. They just didn't know it. And then more recently, like even today, this weekend, I was holding auditions because I find the need to actually meet new people. And especially since I had such a successful run with auditions of Love Espionage, and I met a whole new slew of actors I never met before and who've done fantastic jobs. So I held auditions, and, we'll see what comes of that, because I met a lot of new people today. And, so that's part of it, too.
The Detroit film scene isn't what it once was. I think that we all know that the state of Michigan hasn't done a lot for filmmakers. Do you find it harder working in Michigan as opposed to like when you went to Toronto to work, or?
Well, Toronto was challenging because I had to leave. I was out of the country and I didn't know anyone. So, but it was also something as a filmmaker, it forced me into trying to come up with a creative way to cast people. I had to go out there to sort of meet everyone and everything, and then find locations. And I actually experienced that with the very first film I did out there, which was The Codes. So this Love, Zoe and Jess was a second film. I just kind of asked the people that was in The Codes to be in this one, because some of the websites that I used prior went to like a country restriction all of a sudden. So since I wasn't in Canada, I couldn't cast in Canada, whereas the year before, I could cast in Canada. So that made it a little more challenging, more difficult. But because it was a new year for me, being out there and casting and stuff, people at the Toronto, actually that was my third year in Toronto. The first year I did a film by myself, but the people in Toronto, they kind of know me. And so I've been networking, and now I've got some people that been in other groups who are connected to me on Facebook too. So I'm hoping that I can continue to build out there. Here in Detroit, however, it's not as difficult because I have more resources here. I know Michigan more, so it's not complicated to me. As far as being a filmmaker, the Michigan incentives had no meaning to me because I can't spend that kind of money. So I wasn't going to get a tax incentive. So, because I know the areas, well, I have to say, even with Love Espionage, we don't have it set in Detroit, even though we filmed in Detroit. It's actually set in Siberia and Würzburg, Germany. And we chose Germany because of Frankenmuth, because it has that look. I had another film, Discreet Indiscretion, where I found a park that had this historic look that's here in Michigan, where that's not something I would necessarily find somewhere else, because I'm not from those areas, unless I have someone who knows what I'm looking for, who knows the areas, who, things like that. So because we have such a resource, I'm able to find these things. And also, my films go through seasons. I have films like, I think I did Best Gift Ever once in the winter time. It had snow in it. I've got films where I've done in the summer months where, like Discreet Indiscretion or whatever, that's kind of set in Kansas City, Junction City, Kansas or whatever. And that's in the summertime, as if it's in the south. So, and then I did another film where we really took advantage of all the fallen leaves, masquerading. So, because of those 4 seasons, I have films that go through all seasons, and I have some films that touch into 2 seasons. Which is not kind of nice too. So sometimes I'll have snow and I'll have spring weather, in the same film. So to me, Michigan is very resourceful in that way. And I don't think you can get that anywhere. You can't get that in Atlanta because they don't have snow. But we have snow. We have snow and we get a ton of it.
Oh, yes.
So,
Oh, yeah. No, how many projects total have you completed, like your own projects then?
Well, I've done... See, I don't really count. I did count because at one point because I was doing a resume or something. So I did 50 something a while back. It's a lot more now. It's a few more. I would say that was last year maybe, but I don't really know. It's over 50, but it doesn't, to me, I just have to keep going, because you get caught up in the number of how many you are and you start slowing down. You can demotivate yourself with that. I'm driven by the stories themselves. There are stories I want to tell. There are things that are going on in this world that I have an opinion about, and I don't necessarily want to sit down and have a conversation with someone to sort of kind of get my point across, maybe. When I make a movie, if you watch it, I just shared my opinion.
Yeah, no,
and that's just the way it is. So that's what.
That's about writing too.
And that's about the writing. It's about things that's important to me. And as I grow as a filmmaker, there are always things that are important to me. And films themselves they're just so important to people. People are moved by them. I have people contact me and tell me different things about different films, how it touched on this area of their life, or or moved them this way or whatever. So those things to me are very important. And it makes me feel like I've done something right. So that's what drives me. And then also the people that I work with, they are extreme motivators. I mean, even when I get frustrated by a project, just honoring the work and commitment of the people involved is so important. Because like even Sleepyhead, even though I may have been the one holding the camera and holding the microphone, there were a ton of people involved in that project. So it was never just me. There was all the actors involved. Honoring their work and commitment is like very important. So that's what drives me to finish projects, because no matter what, they've got to get something out there. And I've had projects in the past that weren't that great, but I knew that this person put their all in it. This person needs something for the demo reel. I made a promise, even if it's just kind of it's unspoken promise. It's still a promise that the work will be completed. Right. So I complete it.
Absolutely. So we'll get to starting to wrap it up here. What advice do you have for a budding filmmaker who is just getting started and doesn't know really what to do, but they do know they want to do this?
Well, the first thing you could do is you want to put something down on paper, even if it's simple. It can even be a drawing. It doesn't even have to be words. The next thing you want to do is get your hands on either something with some equipment or someone who has equipment. There are places that rent equipment out cheaply. You can even use your phone. A lot of people use their phone. The phone, believe it or not, is a pretty resourceful piece of technology that will get you started. Then YouTube taught me. I love YouTube. I've learned so much. There's channels like Film Riot that'll give you little ins and outs, little tricks or whatever that you can go pull on. And then you can also sort of just do some kind of Lynda.com has a lot of resourceful knowledge that they share with filmmakers. So you just got to kind of do something and not be afraid that it's going to be bad, because guess what? It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad for a while, because no one's ever started anything perfectly, and no one's ever started from the expert level. You've always got to start from the beginning, and the beginning is pretty rough at times. So I would just say get started, not be embarrassed, and if it's not good, fix it with the next one. And if that was not good, fix it with the next one. You keep fixing it with the next one, but before you know it, you'll be an expert.
All right, that's fantastic advice from an amazing director. Please check out her work on Vimeo at Charlene Jeter. I'm excited to see all of your projects in the future. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for sitting down and talking with us at Cinema Slice.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to it too. Thank you very much.